Well, hi folks. I thought I'd start this demo with some actual playing instead of just blabbing on, because I'm going to do plenty of that. Trust me on that. I'm doing this demo today at the request of two guys named Ronnie. One who directly requested it, and one who asked me for a demo of a similar guitar a long time ago that I never got around to. Sorry about that, Ronnie. But today I'm hoping to make good on both of those promises. And here we are. This is the Chetacaster II guitar, one that I made about 2 or 3 years ago. And I wanted it to be the be-all, do-all #1 guitar that I had always wanted, but could never find anybody else to make. And what makes it special is, A, it's a Telecaster, which makes any guitar special, or it's a Tele-like object. It's got a wide 1 3/4 inch nut, which makes it easier for people with big fingers like me to play less sloppily. And a couple other things I wanted in a guitar are flexible magnetic pickups that will allow me to get a variety of different tones. And then also piezo saddles so I can have an acoustic-y sound. And then the synth pickup built into the guitar rather than slapped on the top like a lot of my guitars are. And as I said, nobody built this, so I had to make it myself. And including the finish, which didn't come out quite the way I'd wanted, despite my careful, apparently not sufficiently careful, sanding, sealing, priming, coloring, clear coating, and buffing to a mediocre sheen. It's here, and, well, on the positive side, nobody's going to steal it because it just doesn't look attractive. Neither do I. So anyway, the demo portion of this is about to ensue. Let's talk about what it can do. As I mentioned, it's got some clever pickups in it, the more conventional magnetic pickups, and they're made by a friend of mine named Mel Waldorf from AlamedaGuitars.com. And they are what he calls the Off-Kiltertron pickups. They have 5 in this case, but are capable of 6 different sounds for a variety of different magnetic pickup sounds. So the lightest or thinnest, if you will, of these is, I don't remember the name, but they all rhyme, and I'll get to that. I'll probably put them in text on this video when I go back and edit it. But this one is a kind of Rickenbacker-ish, lipsticky kind of sound. Next one up is the Telecastration, as I like to call it, more of a tele sound. So, and I use that a lot in country music, of course. Next, and the one that I spend a lot of time in, is the Dynasonic-y kind of sound. And still plenty of twang, a little less bright than the tele sound. And in the middle position, it gets that Dynasonic Gretsch sound very close. They're close to it, for me anyway. Next one up is the Filtertron-ish kind of sound. Still twangy, but in a humbucking kind of sound, or a humbucking arrangement of the coils so that it's not as noisy if you're in a noisy environment. And I'll switch to that one if I'm in a noisy environment. So the next one up from that is the Gibson humbuckery sound. So if I want a fatter humbucking kind of sound, I can flip to that one. And the 6th one that I don't have wired into this guitar, because this was an early implementation of the Off-Kiltertrons, is called Crush, and it's, at least that's what he calls the setting, and that is a hot Gibson-esque humbucker sound. And someday I'm going to get in and wire this to add that other one in, but I haven't done it yet. Next up would be the piezo or acoustic-y sounding pickups on the guitar. Graphtec, which is a company that makes nuts and bridge pins, they even made picks for a while, but they use graphite and other composite materials to build guitar parts, and they came up with a set of saddles for this kind of bridge and they embedded piezo pickups in each one, and that's the same technology that's used in acoustic guitar or acoustic electric guitar amplification. And so they called this, originally they called it the FAAS or FAS, which actually stood for Fat Ass Acoustic System. And then they decided they should call it something more marketable, and they changed the name to Ghost, and I'm not even sure what Ghost stands for, if anything. But there's a preamp built into the guitar that's buried under the other on the other side of this wood here. There's a preamp built into it which amplifies the pickups and sends it on out to the amplifier, so it sounds kind of like an acoustic guitar, especially if you turn it up. But wait, there's more. Once Graphtec had figured out that, hey, we put these 6 individual pickups in there, what if we made it a hexaphonic pickup like those Roland pickups and made it compatible with Roland and Axon synthesizers and guitar processors? So they added a circuit called the Hexpander module, which just plugs onto the preamp and gets further shoehorned into the control cavity of this guitar, along with a battery to run it all. And it allows me to use my guitar synthesizers and guitar processors, which simplifies the process of playing live and switching from one kind of a guitar or one tuning to another and stuff like that. We'll demonstrate that in a little while. So the controls on this guitar, as hopefully you could see from the slide that I'm overlaying on this section, are the pickup switch, which selects, like any other electric guitar with 2 pickups, the neck pickup, both pickups, or the bridge pickup. There's a stacked pair of concentric knobs here, which are the volume and tone controls. It's an active tone control, so it's a treble boost and bass boost, or just flat in the middle if you keep it that way. This is the equivalent of the volume or the GK1 knob on a Roland pickup. And this can be programmed to do anything. I generally use it to adjust the patch volume so that I can get louder if I need to, or softer on those rare occasions when I feel I don't need to play as loud. This is the volume control for the acoustic or piezo pickups, and then this is the rotating selector switch of fun for the Off-Kiltertron pickups. There's 3 little switches here. One of them is a blend or selector switch for the magnetic versus the acoustic pickups, and you can have either one or the other or both if you put it in the middle. The one above that is a patch selector, which allows you to jump up and down through banks of patches on a synthesizer. And I don't use that very much because I usually use a foot controller or my iPad for that. And then the other one is a selector for using just the magnetic or piezo pickups or just the synth pickup. And I generally leave that in the middle because there's enough switches on this guitar and life gets confusing enough as it is. So that's what all of this does. Your question now is, what does it sound like? Well, you've heard what the magnetic pickups sound like, and you've heard a little of what the piezo pickups can sound like. So let's hear what the synth pickup can sound like. And I use this for a variety of different things, as I mentioned, but mostly it's for switching different kinds of guitars or different tunings of different kinds of guitars. So if I wanted to sound like an acoustic guitar, and I realize I could do that with just the piezo pickups, but this one sounds even closer. And sometimes I want it to be a 12-string. And we have some songs that play in other tunings, like drop D. And sometimes you want to come out of drop D. I've got a little button that just tunes and detunes the 6th string so that it can be drop D or not drop D. Sometimes you want to be all the way down in D. So this setting just drops everything down a whole step to D. Even though you're playing an E, it's coming out in D. And sometimes we have songs with the sound of an electric 12-string. Not that song. It's usually more like... I'd like to have a B-bender telly. Well, really, I'd like to be able to play a B-bender telly, but given my level of clumsiness, I don't think that's really a good idea. But I have a patch that will virtually bend the B string a whole step by squeezing an expression pedal down here. It's a lot simpler, certainly a lot faster to get to. And on those rare occasions when we have to play, well, I guess if I wanted to do a Willie Nelson song, I could play a, I can emulate. I can emulate a nylon string guitar as needed. But in addition to all the fancy guitar tricks, or just stupid guitar tricks, there's a guitar synthesizer built into Count Racula over there. And it has a bunch of different instruments that I can access by playing the guitar. And there are songs like Steve Earle's Copperhead Road that make use of it. For example, that song starts out with bagpipes at the beginning. I don't have bagpipes. I can't emulate bagpipes, but I can emulate an accordion. Now that song quickly jumps to an acoustic guitar. And in the ending part, it's all electric. This makes pretty quick work of that. This is actually back on the guitar processor, but sometimes you want a sitar kind of sound. Sometimes. And once in a while we want to pretend we have a saxophone. And though we don't do it in any band that I'm in now, if we ever want to do Ring of Fire, we're ready. You get the idea. There's songs like Fast As You where it starts with a guitar part, but on the record, there's an organ. But you got to go back to play the guitar part sometimes. So with an expression pedal, I go back and forth between the two and fade in and out of them. And if we ever have to do a Marshall Tucker song, or if it's Merle time. But wait, there's more. Sometimes the bass player doesn't show up. And there are songs like a song that Haywire does. The one Toby Keith song I actually like that has a baritone part that goes something like, if I turn it on. And we can raise it up a step for those George Strait songs. It's all well and good. I mean, you could use a capo for that. But sometimes you've got to jump down a half step And that would take longer. And while most guys just, for example, to play in E flat, they would go to drop D and put the capo on the first fret and play it in D. It would come out at E flat, and everybody's happy, except that you can't really get the same sound that you can get. Because some of those notes just want to be played on open strings. This allows you to. And one of my favorites is favorite concept is to be able to go between an acoustic and electric guitar, because a bunch of songs need that. Things like anything by Midland, and of course. Because when you go to the chorus, you've got to be. This allows you to do that without even taking your eyes off the crowd. Open tunings are fun. Tough to get to quickly, but this makes that a little easier. And switching from one open tuning to another. This is one song that I do. Open D for the first two verses. After the bridge, it jumps to open E flat. Now, I could do that with a capo, but my hands are kind of busy at the time. And even though David Wilcox, who wrote the song, does it by holding the bridge, grabbing a capo that he's got strategically placed on the nut, and dropping it on the first fret, I find it easier to do this way. And there's a Clint Black song that I learned to play with a band that I subbed in recently, and I wanted to impress them. I'm not sure it worked, but I wanted to impress them, so I found a way to play the one lick in the song that's done probably on a Dan Electro bass guitar, or a 6-string guitar that's tuned an octave below. And so I figured a way to do that on this one, so I can go. And that's all well and good. But if you were playing that and then you want to go play the verse, you don't want to play rhythm on a guitar that's all muddy down an octave below, because that would sound bad. So with a switch, we can go back up to the regular tuning. And then quickly switch for the lick. And of course, what cover band doesn't have to do Margaritaville once in a while? And you can play it. And it sounds like you're playing it on a guitar, and that's all well and good. But I'd like to take it to the next level. Now, if you play the whole song that way, it's going to get obnoxious. So you have to be able to switch back to just playing like a regular guitar. But when you end it, you have to go. Okay, you don't have to. I do. And I could go on, and given the opportunity, I probably would. There's a lot more sounds I could get out of this guitar and this combination of effects and crazy processors, but I think we've all had enough for one day. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in. And Ronnie, I hope you are happy with the demo, because I ain't doing another one. And perhaps we'll do another webcast sometime soon. So from the studio of silliness, I bid you a fun day, and we'll see you next time. Since it's a guitar demo, we'll take this one out with some guitar playing. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do this again sometime.